Okay, finally here with Chapter 4B, I'll include two parts. Really just kind of an overview about how to fetch information and what's happening with this fetch. I've mentioned it a little bit already, but let me tell you or talk about this in more detail, and then let me run some examples. So when you're fetching information, remember you have this declare cursor, ccursor is, and then whatever your select statement looks like, and that's dropping that information into basically into a memory array on the server. So and then the from and where, so we remember all that. And I've just pulled this information. We have declaring variables here, begin, we have the open cursor, and then looping. Remember the looping part. Now we are going to fetch ccursor, which is this information, into inv-id, item description, and inventory price. Now remember, these variables have been defined in the declare section. Again, those variables are not the same as these. Okay, this is simply slots. This is, if you will, creating slots for inventory ID, a memory array, and item description, and inventory price. Now we declare the variables that information fits into within the declare section. So when we fetch ccursor into inv-id, that's this variable. Now with that said, we absolutely have to fetch this information in sequentially. So the first piece of data that you've grabbed from your select statement needs to be listed first, second, and third. That has to be done. Now if you try to pull item description in first, for instance, this inv-id, remember, it's a number. Okay, like a 5-number number. Item description is like a varchar 220 or 30. So those data types will mismatch. This data from this array will drop sequentially into this fetch. So first of all, just based upon data types, you have to have things lined up. But oftentimes your variable, even if it's a number, will have different sizes, and you have to drop this stuff in apples for apples. Okay, so that's the fetch piece on this. Let me go to using different cursors. So if we look at this, and you'll have to blow this up a little bit, look at it in high def or something maybe, but we have two examples, one explicit cursor and one implicit. Remember, the implicit was just when you select something like we did in chapter 3b and 3c, and that prints an output. You can mix and match these. So you have your first cursor, ccursor is, and then the select statement goes with it. You have your variables, and then in this part we work with the begin block. We work with that ccursor and that information within that ccursor. After your output is done, then you can go ahead and select, in this case, sum inventory price times order line quantity, and then go ahead and just run that output. It'll just go ahead and list the output, and then we print a line, and then we put the order total in, and that order total comes from from here, right here, from right there. So we can go ahead and run that order total and list that out as an implicit cursor. So remember, an explicit and an implicit. Simply a select statement, dumping out some information, and then you have and then let's go to this example. Then you have two explicit cursors. So you set up the first cursor, you set up the second cursor, both exactly the same way. You have to have all the variables that work with both cursors, and then you can go ahead and fetch ccursor into last, first, and total, and then work with that. And then you can go ahead, close ccursor, or even open both at the same time. In this example, you open ccursor first, then you open tcursor and work with it. So let's go ahead and grab some examples of this. We should just be able to pull that whole thing into Oracle. Oh, why didn't I do? Set server size 4000. Now let's go ahead and put that in there. So we have the output from our first cursor, and then we have the output from the second cursor, or from the second implicit cursor. let me restate that. We have the output from the first explicit cursor. We have the output from the second cursor, which is the implicit cursor. Okay, let's do the same thing with the two explicit cursors. Okay, so we have this output from the first explicit cursor, the output from the second explicit cursor. So you can see there's a lot of different ways to go ahead and get your results. The important thing is the end, not necessarily the means. We have some, I just want you to review the handling runtime errors, and then we have the sum it up here. I'll let it go at that. But let me step back and recap. We have cursors, declaring variables, this loop stuff, talk about if then and if else if statements, remember where those are, and here is the example that you can go ahead and load and run. And all you have to do is grab that, and it's all text, and it should run for you fine. If we grab that, we should be able to go into Oracle, and that's what that looks like. Okay, we also have an example using row type, so we'll grab all of this and run it. Okay, we have the order number and the customer. Now, using percent type and field data types, we'll go ahead and run this. Now remember, this is using, where is it? Percent type right there. Okay, and that's the output. Now we'll using the same thing using data types. Okay, the very same output, but I used specific data definitions. Remember, using percent type is more flexible and probably a better method. And then we have this information about fetching. Remember, it's sequential. We pull information into it sequentially. And then I gave you these two examples already. And then I want you to review on your own the runtime errors. So that concludes Chapter 4B. You know how to do and submit the homework assignment. You need to make sure that you have the original script, show when you enter the script into SQL, and the output. So you need all those pieces. Same thing, different assignment. And that should do it. Thank you very much.